2.6, solving proportions. So we're going to be solving equations that involve proportions. So a proportion is an equation stating that two ratios are equivalent. So example 1, solve the proportion. If necessary, round to the nearest hundredth. So I want to show you two different ways to solve this. I like to cross multiply. So I would multiply like this. So when I cross multiply, I would take 25 times x, which is 25x, and then 45 times 15. Okay, so I get 25x equals, if I multiply those, I get 675. And then to solve this, we divide both sides by 25. And that would get me x equals 27. Okay, so that's how I prefer to do it. You could also do it this way. So if I look at my original equation, okay, that 45 is on the bottom and x is on the top. So to get rid of 45, I could just multiply both sides by 45. So if I do that, I get x equals 15 times 45 divided by 25, which 15 times 45 is 675, divided by 25 gets me x is 27. So both of these work as ways to get your answer. It's just once you get to a problem like the next one, the second method is a little bit harder for me, or for like people to use. So to me, it's easier for you guys if we do it the first way, which is just cross multiply. Okay. So in example 2, we have an x on both sides. And not only do we have an x on both sides, but we also have it to where we have to go through and try and get these terms by themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, I would take 24 times x equaling, and then I'm taking 9 times 2x minus 3. Okay, so all I did was I cross multiplied. Now, when we go to cross multiply here, we have to remember to distribute this. So we get 24x equals 9 times 2 is 18x, and 9 times 3 is 27, so we have minus 27. Now it looks like the problems we did back in like 2.4. So I can go ahead, subtract 18x from both sides to get my x's to the same side. When I do that, that is going to get me a 6x equals, and we're left with negative 27. So then to get x by itself, I gotta get rid of that 6. So I would divide both sides by 6, and I get x equals, negative 27 divided by 6 actually comes out to be a negative 4.5. So it says round to the nearest tenth, so that number is to the nearest tenth. Okay. So then we can go ahead and move on to this next example, example 3. Okay. So for example 3 here, it says parts of Mexico City are sinking at a rate of 140 centimeters every 5 years. If this rate remains constant, how many centimeters will the city sink in the next 12 years? So you'd want to go ahead and set up a proportion. So I'm going to do my proportion as centimeters over years for both sides. So in 5 years, it sunk 140 centimeters. So I'd have 140 over 5 for what we know. We want to figure out how many it sinks in 12 years. So I put 5 years on the bottom. So I have to put 12 years on top, on bottom. And then I would put x on top. That's what I meant to say. because it's where our unknown is, because we don't know those centimeters. Now, it looks like the other problems we have, so we can go ahead and cross multiply. So I take 5 times x and 12 times 140. So we get 5x equals 12 times 140 is 1,680. Okay. Between the 5 and x is multiplication, so we'd have to undo that by dividing both sides by 5. If we divide both sides by 5, we're going to get that x is 336. So, in 12 years, the city will have sunk 36 centimeters, is what this is saying. Are there any... you can't ask questions. So we'll go ahead and move on to example 4. So example 4 here, we have a guide company makes a trail mix of raisins and mixed nuts. How many pounds of raisins does the guide company need to mix with 14 pounds of mixed nuts to make the trail mix 30% raisins? Okay. So we're trying to do raisins over the mixed nuts. Okay. So I'll set up my proportion. We know that we want 30% raisins. So I'm just going to go ahead and represent that as 30. Okay. There are a few different ways you could do this. One way is, since it's 30% raisin, I could figure out what percent mixed nut it is, because the percentage has to be 100. So I could take 100 minus 30, which gets me that 70% has to be the mixed nut. Okay. We don't know how many raisins there are, and I put raisins on top, so I'm going to put R on top. For mixed nut, we know there are 14 pounds, so I can put that on the bottom. So now we can cross multiply and solve this. So I would have 70R equals 14 times 30. So 70R equals 14 times 30 is going to go ahead and get me 420. So then I would divide both sides by 70, which gets me R is 6. So that means we would need 6 pounds of raisins. Okay. So personally, this is how I would solve the problem. Another way to solve this problem, because I'll show it to you, is going to be using, once again, the 30%. But instead of finding our other percentage, we always know that 30 is out of 100. Okay. So this would be doing raisins over total instead. Okay. So once again, we don't know the pound on raisins, so that'd be R. But our total isn't 14. It would be the raisin pounds plus those 14 pounds of mixed nuts. So in the denominator, we'd have R plus 14 using this method. So we can still cross multiply. So I'd get 100R equals 30 times R plus 14. I would distribute my 30. So I get 100R equals 30R plus 30 times 14 is going to go ahead and get me 420. I would subtract 30R from both sides. If I do that, that gets me 70R equals 420. Divide both sides by 70, and we still get R is 6. So this is just two different ways you could solve it. It just depends if you wanted to do raisins to mixed nuts ratio or raisins to total ratio. So, like I said, I think cross multiplication is the easiest, but you can technically use any of the methods that I showed in today's lesson.